Hello, my name is Alina, and I just wanted to make sure that you can hear me well. So if everything is good, we will start. So the name of my presentation is Virtual Events Moving Beyond Zoom, because I think that actually in the last, depending on the country from where you're joining us, it's been either 4 or 5 weeks of isolation, and we've experienced a lot of changes in the way how we live, the way how we work, the way how we deal with every single situation that used to be normal just a couple of months before. But actually, it's very good to consider this time also as a challenge to see and maybe rethink some of the things that we've been doing previously. For example, before we would all fly to Laval and enjoy each other's company, but right now we are using this opportunity to join each other virtually. And there is no better place, I think, to talk about the topic about putting together virtual events than inside this platform, inside VIRBELA. Because we are here all together, and I think that it's the best proof of concept. But I will share my experience briefly. So Ludmila, if we can go to the next slide. So basically 5 weeks ago, when we all understood that South by Southwest is cancelled, there was incredible and very inspiring community gathering within the XR industry professionals, and led by XR Base and XR Crowd Initiative. We've been organizing events and tests for different virtual reality platforms that can handle virtual gatherings. And we've been doing that every Friday with great colleagues like Andrei Lenov, who will be joining us later for the panel discussion. And it was actually very inspiring to see the industry coming together, because we understand that when we work in VR, we know about the platforms that are available, we know about possibilities to get together in the virtual environments, but the main issue was how to bring that to the audiences that are not familiar with these opportunities, how to gather people who are not in VR, who don't have access to headsets. And basically when we started looking into that, and when we started exploring all the virtual platforms, I put together a blog post, and it was on the 18th of March, so a little bit over a month ago, highlighting every single virtual platform and highlighting their accessibility, which platforms they support, how many people they can support. And it was kind of a start, and I tried to put together this post for people who are not familiar with VR or virtual platforms, so they have a point of start there. Can we move to the next slide? And 1 month later, we held a very ambitious event. It was actually part of Laval Virtual, and it happened yesterday. XR-based investor event was fully held in virtual reality, and it was an incredible journey to actually, for 2 full weeks, dedicate my time only to the production of the virtual reality conference. Everything that we knew in theory, in these 2 weeks, we had an opportunity to test in real life. And XR-based investor event was really special because we tried to replicate a physical event that already happened for 3 times in Amsterdam as a virtual event, where we would have investors in place and VCs in the room, together with startups that were selected to pitch on stage. We would have one-on-one virtual meetings, and we would try to connect people and bring real life value that usually happens during investor events. So if we can go to the next slide and try to play the video. On the video, you'll just see a short show reel of what we put together yesterday, because it's been a great and very challenging experiment, we decided to hold the event on Engage VR platform. So the majority of people that joined us inside Engage were either VC investors or startup founders who were prepped and ready to join us in VR headsets for full presence on the platform. But besides that, we had live stream to 2 different platforms. We had a room inside VIRBELA as part of Laval Virtual World that had live stream in it from inside Engage platform. And then besides that, we were live streaming to YouTube as well. So as you see, we tried to come as close as possible to producing really high value and high production value virtual event. And I can tell you that we were able to test a lot of things that are necessary to put together a virtual event in this couple of weeks. As a result, we had 8 startups on the stage pitching. We had over 25 VCs in different rooms in Engage. And we had over 100 people joining us virtually inside Engage with headsets or from their computer, as well as the audience inside Laval Virtual. And we're very grateful that Laval supported this this initiative and actually partnered with XR-Base Amsterdam to hold this virtual event as part of Laval Virtual. And as well as over 1,000 people already watched the live stream on the YouTube. So I think that in this experiment, we tried to gather as many different types of audiences as possible, including people who were able to join us in inside VR, people who just watched 2D screen, and people who also joined us inside VIRBELA. So the next slide is just an image of live stream inside VIRBELA from a different VR platform, which is Engage. And I think it's a great example of how we try to combine virtually streaming to another virtual stream, which is a next level a little bit for me. Can we go please to the next slide? But if you take a look at the backstage, this is just a couple of messy images that I received yesterday from the team. You can see Andrei Lunov, who is the executive producer for the event. And if you think about virtual production, just trust us that it requires a lot of hardware, very heavy setups, and a lot of hard work. Our experience, and we can go to the next slide, has shown that putting together a virtual event that is aimed to reaching large audiences, including premium audiences, like having top investors in VR from all over the world, requires a lot of work, and it's actually not easier or equivalent in terms of workload to produce that, to produce a real life event. Here on the slide, you just see kind of a dashboard. Maybe it's not seen very well, but you can actually find it online. It's online. It's industry landscape put together for XR collaboration platforms and companies. And you can see that there are a lot of players. And also, if we go to next slide, I put together key takeaways that I see as the most important things to keep in mind if you're thinking about the virtual events. Next slide, please. So the key takeaways is that, first of all, there is no one platform for all events. You have to keep in mind that for different audiences, different platforms would work the best. And the best way how to differentiate those platforms is, first of all, by the matter of accessibility. If you want to reach the largest audience possible, you have to have 2D live stream, for example, or you have to choose platforms like VIRBELA, which is available for PC and Mac, You can choose platforms like LearnBright, which is a WebXR based educational tool, or platforms like Mozilla Hub, which is, I think, that the best example of WebXR platform that is very accessible. And we will be hearing later from Blair MACINTYRE from Mozilla Hubs. I'm very excited to talk to him as well. So identify your audience. If you are planning a small corporate meeting and you want to create a really valuable experience for a small group, maybe you can choose such platform as Glue. Maybe you can choose a platform like Median VR that really provide high value, but for a small group. At the same time, if you want to have everyone, consider WebXR solutions, but please keep in mind that even with WebXR, there are a lot of challenges and a steep learning curve for each platform to actually organize a quality event, because people can face difficulties when joining, people can get kicked out, they have sound issues, etc. So we all need to keep in mind that onboarding on the platform, and from my experience, Laval here did a great job with explaining how to download everything beforehand and encouraging everyone to check what VIRBELA is beforehand, is very important for the overall experience. Then quality first, because when we're talking about virtual events, it's no different from actually talking about real events, because you can gather people in the hotel conference room and put one camera and live stream it without any screens or anything, and it would be still a conference, but it wouldn't be visually very attractive. But at the same time, you can produce a conference where you have a studio setup, speakers prepared and briefed on stage to make a show out of that, live stream from 6 professional cameras, and that would be an absolutely different live stream conference. So when we are moving events into the virtual world, the quality of the production and the quality of the value should translate as well. You can just do a simple meetup on one of the platforms without any streams, and people will enjoy it. But if you are planning to attract the audiences and have it be an official virtual event, then please make sure that you plan it as a production of the absolutely real event, and you are get ready to face some technical challenges as well that your team would need to troubleshoot during the event and in the preparation for that. And then if we are thinking about bringing virtual events to larger audiences, of course, we have to make sure that it's also available on the flat stream, so it can be viewed on any 2D platform, whether it's YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitch, or whatever other platform that you want to have. It is important to think about that from the TV content production standpoint. And I see myself so many new professions emerging as we go in the last 5 weeks, because we are talking about cameras and camera angles that requires professional view and ability to create the best camera angle from the virtual content. So it's virtual cameraman. We need virtual directors that would be able to direct the live stream from, for example, multiple cameras and switch the camera angles to capture the most interesting parts of the virtual event. We need on-air graphics. We need editors who put together the overall videos from the event. We need to make sure that the sound is good, and I find that that's one of the biggest challenges when we see virtual events held, because sound is actually something that is giving identity to your avatar. This is something that makes you really connect with another person. And it's extremely important to have good quality sound so people can actually hear you. So please think about all these aspects if you're considering gathering the audience live, and take into consideration just maybe partnering with professional TV content producers so they can adjust their skills that they already have in traditional TV production to producing virtual events, but at the keeping the same quality of the production. And if we can go to the next slide. I wouldn't have time because I'm a little bit over time already to talk about all the platforms. Trust me, there are plenty, and we still continue testing them. There is VR chat and AltSpace. We will hear from AltSpace a little bit later. I also wanted to give heads up to VR Room, which is and to Louis, the founder of VR Room, who did a great job putting together a space inside VR chat environment that is dedicated specifically to holding events, festival screenings, and allows you also to view content 360 simultaneously. Of course, I want to highlight Engage VR, the platform that became home for us for the last 2 weeks of the production for XR-based investor event. And I think on my computer only, I spent over 80 hours inside Engage VR platform only in the last couple of weeks. But I also wanted to show this example and to give shout out to Gabriele, who is a great XR visionary, and he invited me to be part of several experiments inside Glue platform, which is another B2B corporate meeting and co-working platform that currently is targeting to attract business communities around the world and corporate clients to hold really strategic meetings for not a lot of people, but with great immersive capabilities to be present there. So Gabriele has been running experiments, and if we can go to the next slide, maybe we will be able to play a short video showing one of our last meetings and last experiments in Glue. So I really liked Gabriele's attitude towards creating content and holding meetings in VR, because if we have an opportunity to be all together in one room, but also to be able to bring any type of 3D content or interactive content into the room, we actually need to think about virtual events, not only from the standpoint of replicating traditional events, but actually taking it beyond. What is the value that we can create in virtual reality by, for example, making interactive design thinking sessions when we can in real life use 3D objects to navigate and to get examples of like how we can set up something in the real life. What is there that we can do beyond just replicating the real life environment? Can we bring scientific objects into the room and make sure that the content is as engaging as possible, and you do actually something that is not possible in the classroom or not possible at the real conference. So I think that the next step for virtual events would be actually upscaling the experience that people can get from an event, and that would motivate people who can see quality content like that to actually keep producing virtual events even when things get back to normal. Because we all need to understand that right now it's a unique opportunity, taking into the account the situation that we see all around the world, for people to try and dedicate their time to get familiar with VR platforms, with virtual content, with 3D platforms, and with the concept that they can be present somewhere virtually. That's a very big step for the audience to take. And I'm talking mostly not about us VR and XR professionals, but for general audiences. It is a steep learning curve, and it requires a transition in their understanding overall. And if we use this opportunity to prove that there is value in holding virtual events, I think we will have this format even when things get back to normal. And thank you so much for listening. I think that I will be here for a while, just moderating a panel that will start after 5 p.m. And right now, I want to use this opportunity to invite Alex HOWLAND on stage. And actually, he is CEO of VIRBELA, and it's my privilege to have him on stage. I am very excited to hear what Alex would present to us, but I think that it's a great opportunity to have CEO of the company with the insight which product we are in to share with us his views. So Alex, if you can please.
More in the world than just what we can do in the actual world. So
absolutely. So I will be on stage and maybe we can chat after you're done with the presentation. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Look forward to that. Hey everyone, thank you so much. It's nice to be here in Laval Virtual. And first off, I just want to say, wow, Laval Virtual, what an amazing event they've put on. I'm so impressed with the Laval staff. It's just incredible. We started talking to Laval, maybe a month ago, and to see what they've pulled off in that amount of time is just pretty incredible. So I'm honored that they hosted the event, including VIRBELA, and I appreciate you all being here and having some exposure on the platform. Today, I wanted to talk specifically about a case study that we've developed in VIRBELA, on a VIRBELA virtual world for the past 3 or 4 years, to give a sense of even beyond events. Can we do things beyond these kind of scheduled short time events, but can you actually use these virtual worlds as a replacement for brick and mortar offices? And today I'm going to talk a little bit about a case study of a company that's doing just that with pretty amazing results. So I'm going to be talking about eXp Realty. So just before I talk a little bit about eXp Realty, a little bit about VIRBELA and myself. I'm not a technical founder. I'm actually an organizational psychologist. And I saw the need to be able to bring people together from all walks of life and have an opportunity to learn from different cultures and nationalities, and have an opportunity to learn with each other and develop our leadership skills, our cultural skills, and saw virtual worlds and virtual platforms as a great way to do that when I was in graduate school. The learning management systems just weren't enough. I could listen to and watch slides on diversity and inclusion, but until I was actually interacting with people from different cultures, I wondered if I was truly learning. So we embarked to build VIRBELA. Today we're about 50 folks, mostly around the U.S. We operate our business out of VIRBELA. VIRBELA is our headquarters, so we eat our own dog food and work out of the product. Again, today I'm going to talk about eXp Realty. eXp Realty is a residential real estate company, originally started in the US, so they've expanded. They got started back in 2009, right after the 2008 financial crisis, where the founder, Glenn Sanford, had to shut all his brick and mortar offices down during that crisis, and really had scratched his head and said, how can I reinvent my business going forward so if there's ever a downturn, I'm in a good position to ride it out or even excel in a downturn or a pandemic in this case that we're dealing with now. So what's unique about eXp Realty is they have no brick and mortar offices. They operate entirely through a virtual environment, and they do everything you do in a business through the platform. Prior to VIRBELA, they were on Engage, and I think they were on not Engage, present day Engage, but via Live Engage, and even a different platform before that. They switched over because they were scaling past what could be supported in a via Live Engage in mid-2016 to VIRBELA. And now they run their operation out of eXp World, much like Laval Virtual World. What's interesting about eXp Realty is they run their entire operations out of the world. So whether they're doing agent prospecting and trying to recruit new agents to their firm, or doing C-suite meetings and board meetings, everything happens in the virtual virtual environment. So like there's 720 people right now in this environment. In US business hours, they typically have between 800 and 1,500 people at all times in their VIRBELA virtual world in about 60, actually I think they now have over 200 different spaces for their team. And it's just absolutely fascinating, especially being an organizational psychologist, watching this business grow in a virtual world. They have accounting operations, finance, HR building. Each state has their own, building to support the agents in their space. So how is it working for them? Can they actually do this effectively? Can they grow their business? Overwhelmingly, the answer has been yes. They were about 900 agents when they got started with us in 2016. Today, they're over 28,000 real estate agents and have grown in under 4 years to that rate. So it's just been pretty, again, astounding to watch the growth and use in how they can run their full operation in a virtual world. They are now in all 50 states, in Canada, and just launched in the UK and Australia the end of 2019. They have growth rate over 1,600%, and have been valued at times over $1.2 billion. In 2018, they uplisted to the NASDAQ and publicly trade under EXPI. And what I find and maybe most proud of is that they've been voted 3 years in a row as a best place to work by Glassdoor. So imagine that. This isn't the future of work. This is happening now. A company for 3 years in a row have been voted as a best place to work where there's no physical offices to go to, and their employees and their stakeholders come each day to a virtual world. Pretty amazing. So, I try to think back, what are the business values? What are the culture values? What are the team values? And what are the individual values of working in the virtual space? So if you think at the business level, one thing is obvious, right? Significant fixed cost savings on brick and mortar. So that if we think in the sense of real estate, typically you think of a Remax in every little corner of every little town, at least here in the United States. There's a lot of real estate overhead, and then there's corporate offices. So when there's a downturn in the market, those fixed costs stay. Here it's really a variable cost and much lower cost, obviously, than brick and mortar. Unprecedented scale. They can be in any market, so they don't have to go set up operations in new markets. Their headquarters is everywhere in the world when it's in the virtual world. Anywhere they get people on, they can immediately be in that market. So they can move internationally very quickly and efficiently. When we think about recruiting, and the cost, to hire someone in typical, technology-focused companies like Silicon Valley or New York or Boston, some of these other areas, here there's the ability to recruit best talent wherever they may reside. So you can get the best talent, and they might also be a bit more affordable than your typical hotspots. And then there's evidence, right, at least with the case study of eXp Realty in winning awards like with Glassdoor, that there's increased employee satisfaction. eXp does employee net promoter scores and are always quite high results. And then the employees have a lot of flexibility, so they can also retain employees. If an employee is moving from one location to another, they don't need to find a new job. Their job comes with them. So what are the team benefits? Here's a picture of my team. At the end of any stand-up that we do a hands-in with our avatars and raise them up. So what are the benefits of a team? When my team, I can speak for myself, operating a team, we feel together. I'm preaching to the choir here. This group knows about presence and the benefits of presence. We really get a sense of being together, even though we're scattered. Improved communication. The sense that we can have casual bump-ins and collisions with one another. It's not just, hey, we got to work to schedule, a Zoom call. Meetings aren't just, synchronously set. What's cool is when we end, a stand-up, all the different interactions that happen both before that stand-up and afterwards, whether it be a one-on-one group or a group of 5 or 10, lots of different abilities to interact. And hey, I have a quick question. I can just pop into a colleague's office and talk to them. So it really helps build this sense of shared culture, being together in a place and operating and growing a business together. At the individual standpoint, a big maybe downside of working remote is there's often feelings of isolation. And our belief in what we've seen in operating in a virtual world, you don't have to have your camera on all day, right? Because that's exhausting. Interesting article just came out in the Wall Street Journal, why Zoom meetings can exhaust us. It's not natural to have ourselves on video camera all day. We wouldn't want it. It's exhausting. But to have your avatar up and available is a pretty easy thing to do. And it allows for that water cooler chat to occur that's typically lost in a virtual workforce. Not to mention the cost savings that can occur. Admittedly, I'm in my sweatpants far too often, and it's not just with COVID, because I work through this platform regularly. I can regularly be comfortable. I have a 10-month at home. I get to spend time with her, in the mornings whenever I take a break. There's no long commutes. I'm not paying for gas to get to and from an office. So a lot of benefits from a staff level as well. So for me, walking through the EXP case study, what I'm interested in is, okay, great, we've done this once. We've done it once fairly well with EXP Realty, and EXP Realty is continuing to grow like a weed, even currently in the current situation that we're in. But what other industries could benefit from working in a virtual world? Which ones could do it effectively? When does VR make sense? Obviously, most people are in 2D mode here on a Mac or a PC. And folks who are going to work in here 40 hours a week, I don't wish 40 hours a week in a virtual reality headset on anyone, but there are times where it might make sense to toggle into a VR experience and then maybe back to a 2D experience. And just like we think ahead for VR, I think we also need to think about mobile applications and how do we interact via mobile. So regardless of what device you have, there's opportunity to connect and collaborate with your colleagues. And what we're on a mission to do is really think, okay, what are the next 100 or 1,000 EXP-like success stories? And what does our product roadmap have to be to attract other organizations to grow their company in a virtual world like VIRBELA or the other great platforms that Alina shared a little while ago. So really, I pose these almost as questions out to the audience, and would love to hear your thoughts of what industries you might see, really making sense to operate their business in a virtual world or in a virtual reality platform. If anyone wants to raise their hand, put it in the text chat.
Alex, thank you so much. And while we're waiting, I wanted just to thank you for sharing absolutely practical experience of company raising their efficiency by being in the virtual office. And I personally think that your platform is great, and it's one of the very interesting players on the market, also because you can host the largest audience possible if I get it right. So just while we're waiting for the questions, maybe you can share how many people can VIRBELA currently support simultaneously, because that's a very ambitious number, I think.
Yeah, thank you. So within one room, we've done over 900. We think as of actually last week in this world, we've done simulations up to 2,700. in a world. I
Oh,
think most
wow.
of you've seen that we shift to a simple avatar pretty quickly. We do that for obvious reasons to keep frame rate up and making sure you don't have to draw that many avatars and
Mm-hmm.
impact your CPU. Uh, for the question that just came in, this is built on Unity. In terms of numbers kind of across the world, we think we can support, many thousands across the different environments. So we segregate our server infrastructure, uh, across the room. So there are different voice servers and whatnot that are supported.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And there are questions that are coming in into the chat, so we can actually take a look at them. Um, how do you handle the networking? Do you develop an in-house solution? Athan is asking.
Yeah, and I'm, I might be the wrong person to ask some of the more technical questions, but we we do some of our own networking. Yes, we take advantage of third-party tools when it makes sense. It's not We do not use the Photon engine. Nope. Um, the sound mix is right now we're leveraging TeamSpeak and do some things on top of that as well.
Okay, thank you. And also, I think a lot of people are asking, and in the chat as well, and that's the question for me. You mentioned it a little bit that on the roadmap you have VR coming up, right? So maybe
Yes.
it's not working for every single use case, but you are already, as far as I know, supporting the PC VR headsets,
Yeah.
and you are like, tell us about the next step in this sense.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So if you see some people with some crazy hands, they're probably in PC VR right now, maybe on the Rift or the HTC Vive. We certainly want, I'd call what exists definitely V1. We haven't given it a ton of attention, mostly because the market hasn't demanded it. Uh, but we are seeing some more market demand, so we are doing more efforts. We work closely with the U.S. military as well, and for them, we create fully immersive VR, high fidelity training simulations. So we would certainly have experience
Mm-hmm.
with VR. But again, the market just hasn't pushed us to really focus on it, and we really take direction from the market and our users. So I'd say for every request I get for VR, I get 20 requests for more access on mobile.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we do have a mobile app that allows you to connect to the different voice channels. So it's a 2D experience, but it at least allows you to get into the room and listen in and talk into an environment. So we'll keep developing mobile as well as the VR experience, and add the ability to bring in 3D models, add the ability to bring in photospheres. Those are important elements that we'll certainly keep working on.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And while I'm looking at other questions as well, my last question, and for me personally, it was very interesting also to see and to communicate within those weeks with different platforms, and because you had such an incredible uptake in interest. Do you how do you deal with that? Because basically in the last 5 weeks, I think every single company in the world probably called you. And I just want to give a shout out to Campbell and to Matt on your team, because I've also been one of those people calling you, and they've been
Good.
great. I know that they've been working crazy hours, but they always try to deliver everything on time. So how are you scaling right now? And
Yep.
what are your like, what is going to happen when things get a little easier with COVID?
Yeah, so we've pretty much doubled our staff over the last month, mostly folks on the front of the house, although we're certainly recruiting engineers as well. We have what we call VIRBELA Open Campus, which is freely downloadable and available for anyone in the world to get in. And in that campus, we do basically co-working. So for $100 bucks a month for up to 10 people, you can get your private space in the environment, and it's a great way for people to get started and comfortable with low risk and low cost to get started. And then for a number of companies, as you can imagine, like Laval Virtual, we're spinning up, these private campuses for them as well. But it's fascinating to watch that open campus grow and see the culture of the open campus. And we're starting to have social events and seeing a lot more people in there. It's fantastic, and it's VIRBELA is about the people, not about the technology. We see the technology as the conduit to bring those folks together. So the culture that we can develop in these worlds is what excites me the most. So our question around, the ability to, upload slides and those sorts of things. We're about a month out to a native tool for webcam share and screen share, so I don't have to use a third-party tool like Crankwheel.
Okay, thank you so much for answering all the questions. Do we have any more questions coming? Or because we are expecting our next presenter, Genevieve PESANT. Genevieve, if you're here, maybe you can already come to the stage. And we will, in the meantime, continue taking a little bit of the questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. And again, congrats to the Laval team. This is fantastic. We appreciate you all being here, and we love feedback. We're fairly new to events, and it's great to see this amount of people, and we have ideas of how we can make it better, even in the short term. Thanks all.
Well, do you want me to start, or do you want who's? I can't really see.
No. Just introduce yourself quickly, and then we'll run quick introductions, and then come back with the questions for each panelist.
Right. Okay, thanks. I'm Thomas BEDENK. I'm from Germany, director Immersive Media at a Berlin-based agency. We're dealing with clients like Volkswagen, Audi, Siemens, and create different solutions for them in virtual reality. Do also create other stuff like broadcasting but my field of expertise is virtual reality, augmented reality.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Thomas. And Lorelle, can you please just quickly introduce yourself?
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Lorelle VANFOSSEN from Educators in VR, and we work on helping to integrate virtual and spatial technologies into education for educators, students, learners, research. That's it. Is that quick enough?
Yes, it's very quick. Thank you so much. Andre?
Thank you for having me here, the panel. I'm an industry analyst at Spaces Innovation Hub in Amsterdam. So we host it's a big working space, and also the works and venture capital as a part of our investment in the XR industry.
Thank you, Andre. The only thing, and we are familiar with you when we're running VR events, audio can be the only issue. Can you please check your mic, and maybe you can connect the headphones, just because we don't hear you very well and your audio is breaking up. So that would be good if you can have headphones with the mic with you. And so then we are turning to Thomas first. Thomas, quick question to you. So let's start with discussing, you are working with brands and companies. When we're talking about doing virtual events, can you please share with us a little bit, what is the situation on your front? What are your clients thinking? All of their events were canceled. Obviously, they're looking for solutions. Can we, as a VR industry, provide them with platforms right now that would satisfy their needs? It would be great if you can share with us your experience.
Yeah, I think, of course, this is a very unique situation, and we see a lot of new requests coming from companies like Volkswagen. For example, their trade show booth for the Geneva Motor Show was already completely planned and organized, and of course that event didn't happen, and so they wanted us to do a completely virtual version of that with as low an accessibility hurdle as possible, but at the same time being as photorealistic as possible. So we did this. We did this virtual.
Maybe you can show us
yeah.
a little bit if you want, just
Yeah.
to share the screen, and we can see what your company has done for Volkswagen.
Yeah. Let me share the screen.
And while you're sharing the screen, I'll quickly turn to Andre. Andre, so you had this first experience of running really big event yesterday, and now you're joining us on stage. So can you please share just a little bit about your feelings of being present here with us in VIRBELA compared to yesterday event at XR Base investor event?
It definitely a different experience because I with my dad and I see everything that going on. But for me, the audio is a very big challenge.
And we're still experiencing it actually.
Yeah. So audio is the main challenge, and second, the sense of presence and orientation in space. But it's definitely to the Zoom instance because I see like multiple people and they speaking, so it's less binaural.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Okay, so Thomas, if you're ready, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your case. Yes.
Yeah, I'm skipping very quickly through a couple of slides. I'm not going to say much about it. Just give a couple of impressions of demon training that we do. This is reconstruction of Aleppo, which is done with photogrammetry. This was a couple of VR cases for Audi, where you also feel the haptics of wind blowing in your face and things like that. This is with volumetric reconstruction and also flying across nature for tourist event. And now this is the Volkswagen Virtual Motor Show that I just mentioned. And so within only 3 weeks, we had to take the CAD data of the booth and implement all this stuff so you can experience in real time. And if you want to try that out right now in the audience, I'll give you a minute to just open this link and try it out yourself. You can either scan the QR code or just type in this URL.
I think if people are joining, are watching us on YouTube, that would be possible. But inside VIRBELA, we kind of don't have our phones in hand, so to scan the QR code.
Yeah, but they're sitting at their desktops. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, but, that's true. That's true.
So I'll try to run it on the screen as well. I just wanted to provide the URL. So do you see that on the screen right now?
I can see it on the screen. So you're saying that the prep time for this project was just 3 weeks. That's a very short turnaround for a corporate client.
Very challenging for both of our sides. It was actually 3 weeks, like from the first moment we talked about this case, and then getting all the car models, modeling all the virtual booth, creating all the interaction interface and all that. And you see, this is all what I'm showing right now is live rendered in the cloud. It's not a video. It's a Unity application running on a cloud server.
And it's available for any user, so it's WebXR basically.
Exactly. You can even run it on your phone, because essentially it's the video feed but the interaction is being fed back to the player, so I can independently move around here wherever I want. If you see that, I mean, the frame rate is probably pretty low right now in this screencasting situation.
Yes, but we can see the quality is amazing. But do you see as a next step people actually joining in this virtual environment and having the ability to share the experience of like trying out the cars together?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you see people being inside the social space?
So I think, I mean, we did a couple of social things before as well, and I think it's always a matter of the use case. And I mean, we all experience in this environment here, in this in this conference environment, that you can do a lot, but you can't do everything at the same time. So I think it's essential that you look at what's really important right now. And in this case, within 3 weeks, it was important to replicate the real booth. But of course, you could do a lot of other things, like just instantly switch the surrounding, the environment of this, or just make the cars explorable, also have multiple uses. We're actually talking with other trade shows about potentially also making this social. But again, like was mentioned before, it's also a matter of what do you want to do in this 3D environment? Where do you want to have a regular video chat, or where is really an advantage of looking at 3D models and all that? So you have to look at it case by case, I think.
That's true. Well, I think that for me, at least, the biggest advantage of having a virtual environment like we are in right now is because we are actually, even though we're using VIRBELA on our PC computers, we can feel that we're sharing one space and we're exploring the space together. And for me, that's kind of one of the most important features of having one place. And on that, I want to ask Lorelle. Lorelle, you are pioneers of VR events. And I think educators in VR, though your conference happened actually right before the crisis happened, but your case was just such a great example of how events can be run virtually.
Thank you.
I think that educators in VR actually were held across multiple platforms, 6, right?
Yes. So you want the stats?
Yeah, no,
I
I
love the
think
stats.
six,
So,
yes.
Yes, but let's give you the stats so you have a idea of what we did. We did number one, the Educators in VR International Summit did not start out to break records, but we ended up doing so. So we had over 170 speakers from around the world present in 150 different events across 5 different virtual platforms, over 6 24 hours, don't do that, trust me, days, and was supported by 75 volunteers. The entire event was free and open to the public. It was held in AltSpace, Engage, Rumi, Somnium Space, and hubs, Mozilla hubs. And it was fascinating. We had many, many lessons learned. And it was literally towards the last few days when the word coronavirus and COVID-19 hit. And so we had not even one day to relax before we were besieged with requests to convert real world events into virtual events. It was really amazing. So but I'm thrilled to be with this amazing panel. So Alina, you were having some major
Thank you so much.
audio background problems, and that's becoming the whole topic of conversation. So I'm not sure if your microphone is plugged in, right? But
I
but I
am.
love this. Okay.
I'm doing everything I can, and also I'm trying to mute myself every time that I'm not speaking, just because I'm not sure where the problem is coming from. I am plugged in with the microphone and fully ready on my PC.
I know. Well, drivers is probably a driver issue, but I just want to let you know that, you know what? Nobody's leaving. Nobody's getting up. Nobody's walking away. We are here because we want to be here, and we're willing to forgive the background noise. So thank you for putting up with it.
Thank you, Lorelle, and thank you, audience. My apologies for my sound. So I'm guessing that. Sorry for that. I'm trying to fix it, but it still doesn't work. Lorelle, and
Yes.
if you would give one advice to people who are looking into running virtual events, what would that be?
All right, here's the $1 million piece of advice, everyone. When you do a real life conference, everyone's in the same time zone, right? So when you say, let's meet at 11, people go, oh yeah, I'll be there, not a problem. When you do it virtually, everyone's in their own time zone. It is a disaster. So if I don't know what time it is for you right now, but the sun just came up an hour ago here where I am outside of Portland, Oregon. And not only is that a struggle, to coordinate speakers at a time when they're awake and conscious and not in the middle of their night, but to also coordinate audience to be there at the right time and one of the problems you have is this false belief that many people in North America and Europe believe that when we speak, I mean, when we have time zones, they're 60 minutes apart. Hour by hour. There are time zones that are 15 and 45 minutes apart. We had a speaker from Nepal. We added them to our schedule, and the entire schedule broke. And I went, oh no!
That's
and so
fascinating.
So once we figured out what was going on, that they had a 45-minute time zone, not 60. We moved it, so they came and they spoke at 5. They're 5:45, but for the rest of the world, it was at 6 o'clock. And again, the AM, PM, and military time and whatnot. That is probably the best thing is when you're working with that pitch. And trust me, here's part 2 of $1 Million. The Outlook.com's calendar, 2 clicks to change time zones. Other ones more complicated, so that saved us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lorelle. And that's a great example of just one of the challenges that we have.
Oh,
and
yes.
Sorry for walking. I was just trying to fix my mic and just my avatar decided to walk. Blair, I actually wanted to ask you on that because, for example, if there are folks in the audience listening to us on YouTube or in the audience, and they would be interested to run an event on Mozilla Hub's platform. So are you planning to make it official? Like, is there any direct contact that you would provide, or how are you dealing with so much interest to virtual events in general and people wanting to run events on your platform?
So if you're interested in send mail to hubs@mozilla.com, which is sort of the email address we set up to sort of let people contact us and find out what they're, tell us what they want to use it for and ask for help. There's also a form that you'll get directed to where you can give more information. I think the nice thing about Hub's Cloud is that you can set it up and customize it. So I didn't say it so much in my talk when I was talking about IEEE VR, but we heavily customized a variety of aspects of the client for VR. We changed the in-world pen to just be a pointer. We changed the front page in a variety of ways, and sort of a bunch of changes, big and small. But I think so you can contact us directly that way. And over the next little while, especially as Hub's Cloud rolls out, we'll be figuring out sort of the changes we want to make to support these sorts of events. I don't think sort of tons of people in one big space is necessarily where we're going to go. We're much more interested in leveraging. Hubs is very symmetric, right? So everything's fully spatialized. And so there's lots of audio streams coming in to each client, which is why we're limited to a smaller number of people in a room. But there's no reason it couldn't be modified by someone else.
Exactly, and you just probably, for each platform, as we were talking earlier, for each platform you need to find your use case, and depending on the audience you want to reach, you need to choose your platform accordingly. Right. Thomas, if I can switch to you and ask you, so from the virtual events perspective, where do you see the interest from brands kind of located right now, and what is your biggest challenge from your perspective for big brands to jump on this opportunity and hold virtual events in this period of time?
Well, I think traditionally big brands on the one hand have a lot of services like agencies advising them creatively, but at the other side it's often difficult to just do something innovative, do something in a really short time frame like Volkswagen just did. It involved a lot of very quick and high level decisions, like for example the board, the Volkswagen board directly themselves had their hands in deciding these things to happen this quick, and that's a challenge to even I mean, there you always have a lot of people in those organizations that are really interested in these kind of technologies and see a future of it. But then coming to a managing level and having them convinced is a whole different story. So a lot of the projects that have been in development in these companies are sometimes never seeing light of day. So I think it is helpful if they in a situation like this, they become more open to trying new things. And you know, there's so much potential to save on travel, to make some things more efficiently, to bring an experience that would not be possible in a real environment. Like, you can bring people together, you can do a lot more interactively than what I just showed you in this case, because I mean, this was just a start where you can do something that you could also do in the real world, just walk around cars. And I mean, one thing that was different is you can't just easily switch out the color and the rims of the cars, but really it's more about experience marketing, where you can enable the people to experience it in a way from home in augmented reality, like there are potentially new cars standing right outside of the door, and then the next day a similar model would be delivered to them where they can actually test drive it in reality after they configure it. There's so much potential also for in other industries, not just the automotive industry. It's more often than not, it's the organization that is sometimes a little slow to accepting and trying out these new things.
Thank you so much, and I hope that with your work we'll see more brands kind of jumping on this opportunity. And just a quick shout out to the audience. So I see the chat right now, and there is actually a very interesting discussion happening, and the question was to Lorelle about the platforms of your choice. So I think that from the chat it would be actually very useful if YouTube audience can also hear that. So Lorelle, can you please answer the question also out loud?
My bad. I'm sorry. There's a part that's, you know, that's one of the, you brought up a really, really important point, is that we need to make sure that all of the audiences that are coming in here are acknowledged and worked with. So we were talking about what is the best ways and best practices, and how do you choose which platform. And basically I said, you have to take into consideration your audience and your speakers and their needs. They are completely unfamiliar with VR, then something like VIRBELA or something that allows 2D access is really essential, because you have to meet them where they are. Don't assume you can just take a live conference and then, you know, go, well, I'm going to whip it and put it into, you know, Engage or wherever it happens to be, and expect that they're going to be able to find headsets and and be able to embrace it. So you need to meet them where they are. And then you need to look at what kind of an experience do you want to have. Do you want to have that be really immersive experience? Do you want it to be just meeting in a room where you're just talking? Or do you really need the 3D models? And then look at those feature sets. There is no good, there is no bad, there is no right. There is satisfying the needs of your audience so that they have the accessibility, they have the access, which are two different things, and they feel comfortable. And then choosing an environment that works. Is that, do y'all, the rest of the panelists kind of agree? I mean, we want to show whiz bang, man. We want to so dazzle people and make presentations at our conferences be mind-boggling. But if nobody shows up, or all they're doing is bitching because the sound or the place, and they can't navigate, and they can, you know, all the complaining, we want them to have a good experience. So am I on track, folks?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for this point. Actually, I think that what we've experienced as well with the event that both me and Andre had a pleasure of running, and had 2 weeks prior to that were absolutely nuts. Onboarding is one of the most important things, and that's why it's actually very interesting to turn to both of you, because volunteers. It seems like there is a new thing as VR volunteer, people who are familiar with the technology and who can help to onboard the audience. With XR Base, we wouldn't have done it without amazing team of volunteers and diversion team who supported us and who helped to troubleshoot and mod, and everyone. Just a shout out to the whole team that put together XR Base. But I think that it's just super important to talk about community as well. And Andre, maybe if we can hear a little bit from you on that. If you have your sound on, let's check it.
Well, let's try to talk about community and virtual reality, because for myself, it's the main purpose of virtual reality. You can cause, you can failure actually, because the experience that you have in virtual is similar to what you have in real life. We're not talking. Yeah, right. It's 3D world, but it's 2D screen. But when experience of sharing space with someone, and you have a million for both of you in a matter of and these memories become similar to memories that you have if you would meet with this person in real life. And what since we started this crowd, which is Embrace Online XR, is like relationship, actually, like a real relationship with met several times in VR, and myself is those relationships are the most valuable of this interaction.
Andre, I don't know, your sound is breaking up horribly. No. I'm very sorry. Maybe that's
okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So, but I completely agree that building, like from what I've heard at least, that building a real relationship on virtual platforms is a thing, because especially after spending so much time in VR headset in the last couple of weeks, I can absolutely confirm that we are creating physical bonds inside the virtual worlds. And on this note, let me probably just jump to the last question. And I wanted to ask Blair on maybe if we're thinking and looking into the future of VR with social VR platforms, and we take it a couple of years from now, I think one of the most important issues is also the issue of privacy and the issue of kind of our data protection when we move to the virtual environments, because we're all here right now as avatars. The majority are on the PC devices, but as we also go forward, I think that it's critical to understand that we have massive challenges in front of us as well. So Blair, maybe you can comment a little bit on that, because I know that Mozilla is working, doing a lot of work in this sense.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that I became so involved with the web, first as a professor and then Mozilla, is because of that privacy and the kind of data that can be gathered from you from the VR and AR headsets that will be available in the next 2 or 3 years is pretty horrifying, frankly, right? You can, for all kinds of things, if you're a bad actor, from people's gaze, from their gait, you can fingerprint people, you can so the web provides some level, at least against some of the actors, for protecting against that. So, you know, VIRBELA is probably, you know, there's lots of companies like this that no reason not to trust. But there's lots of companies who are building VR platforms whose whole business model is based on doing profiling of data collection and so on. And so I think starting to think now about how we deal with that information, not leaving it to the market to sort out. So what are the laws and policies that we need in place to protect the kind of personally identifying information that can be extracted from VR devices, for example, right? And there's a whole path and about privacy and ethics and so on in VR, and it's going to be super critical. That said, I don't want to end things on a sort of like hyper dystopian downer.
Well, no,
I
but
think
we
that,
need to be aware about what's coming in the future, because we're here, are the audience who are very excited about the opportunity to bring people together into one virtual world. But at the same time, I'm always trying to think about people who were very excited in the first decade of internet and building the open web, etc. And now we see so many problems that we're facing in the traditional web with privacy, with issues of audience exploitation and stuff like that. And I just think that it's extremely important to think at least keep it in mind as we're moving forward. Like that's very crucial.
absolutely. I think what I was going to say is that I think as long as we're thinking about it, we can build the platforms that will do the right thing to people. And and part of it's just educating people as to what's possible and what shouldn't be done.
That's very true. Thank you so much. Lorelle, now maybe, the closing notes from you. So what's next for educators in VR? You are sharing so much of your knowledge and your best practices. So let's maybe invite the audience to listen to your classes on AltSpace, I guess, right? Is that the right?
AltSpace Engage, we're everywhere and we're spreading like a virus. Oh, that's a bad analogy. Bad timing. It's too soon. It's too soon. Okay. No, well, as mentioned in the chat, I feel like I'm advertising, but I am presenting our really popular how to produce a virtual conference event that just does tips and highlights and some basic techniques is tomorrow in AltSpace VR. So you can check the AltSpace calendar and our website and everywhere else. This is 3 months ago, just 3 months ago, when we were thinking about, we were working on our conference and everything, and what we wanted to do was to evangelize. We wanted to make sure that people would come in, and we were struggling with how do we get audience in and how do we get them excited about VR and even in 2D and virtual. And then now, today, we're flooded. Scientists are saying, excuse me, I've been talking for hours here. Scientists are saying this is not going to be an isolated, unique event, that it is likely to get worse. The projections are that this is coming back and is likely to get worse. The fact that we as a world, for the most part, embraced this change so quickly. When you think about how humans move throughout history, we're like, bang, within weeks, we are self-isolating, we're taking care of each other, we're struggling. We're also embracing virtual exceptionally fast. Is this the new normal? We're not sure. But we know this is coming back. So all of you, start experimenting now. Start pushing it around. Start shoving it around. Start breaking it. We're breaking VIRBELA here. I love that Laval is pushing the limits here and breaking it because it's going to get better. Please provide your feedback so that the technology can grow and learn. And these amazing leaders that I have up here on the stage with me, we're also pushing the envelope, but we need you. We need your support. We need your community. We need everything, because if we don't have the feedback, we can't do better, because we're going to be doing this again. And it's pretty awesome. Okay, come on, really, folks. Think about this.
I absolutely
Many of
agree.
us are self-isolating. Some of us are completely by ourselves. Some of us are with our families that we don't even know that we've had for 20 years, and now we have to look at them. And yet, here we are in a room with people from all over the world. So please take a minute, put in the chat where you're from so we can actually see this. And you are not alone. And in VR and in virtual, we make that a real statement. It's nice to think it. But for the last month, I have not been isolated and alone. In fact, I've been a little too many people in VR, and I love it. So keep pushing
agree.
it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this absolutely positive, incredible note. And I just wanted also to highlight and to say that this is a unique moment that we're all experiencing. And it's just important to understand that this is a unique opportunity for the virtual concept to be spread around the world, for people to actually acknowledge that VR is bringing so much value. And I understand that we are here, majority of us is very familiar with VR, and we've been inside the space for a while, but we need to use this moment for VR and for XR to shine and to attract as many people as possible. But please keep in mind, if you are doing virtual events, there is nothing more important than creating valuable experience for your audiences, and onboarding and coming, as Lorelle said, to the platforms where your audience is, and providing the best experience is crucial for the success, not only for the conferencing, but for VR overall, because we don't want to repeat the mistakes that we did in 2014 and 15, showing people that cardboard is VR and then trying to get them back for years and years to come. I want to thank all of the panelists. I think we will be wrapping up. If you have any more questions, please type them. And then also, I think all the panelists will be available for some questions after we finish the broadcast. So please give a round of applause to everyone. And thank you so much, you guys, for your time, for sharing your expertise, and for being here. And big shout out to Laval. This is extremely important what you're doing. It's incredible effort, and the whole team. Thank you, thank you, thank you.